started out studying artificial intelligence and grew an interest in archaeology during my studies. I did my doctoral research in the application of AI in archaeology. I've worked in Germany, my home country, as well as the United Kingdom and Canada. And I have been involved in researching artifacts of ancient Egypt and ancient China. A while ago, I was still working on Chinese social studies at Toronto University before I recently arrived here in Hong Kong. It is my first time working in an East Asian region. I know a lot of artifacts that are proven to be from hundreds or even thousands of years ago, but look way too advanced for their era. This has made me curious whether advanced technologies that were ahead of their time and even today had actually existed in the past. That's why I'm interested in your research about remnants of steampunk technologies from over a century ago. I know that your team needs AI to simulate and prove hypotheses, and I am confident to serve this role based on my experience.
Thanks to Professor Batman for the self-introduction. So, ma'am, you just said that you're interested in lost technologies of the past. Then, congratulations, you found the right place here.
We are thrilled to have you join us in unraveling this mystery of Hong Kong lost steampunk technologies, Miss Raymond. Let's first take a review of what we've discovered so far.
Miss Secretary, open the folder and show her the photos.
Here you go, professors.
Look at all these artifacts. Our university's Historical Object Storage Center has a section dedicated for them, which you will visit later today. These are remnants of the steampunk machinery that used to exist in the New Territories region more than 100 years ago. They were said to be much ahead of their time, even more advanced than the technology level we have today.
The Hong Kong government has no authority over those artifacts as they were manufactured long after 1800. So it's all up to our university.
Where did you guys get them from?
They were originally the indigenous clan's heirlooms, and we gradually collected them from the village elders over the last few years. Speaking of which, let's give her some historical context.
In 1898, British made a deal with Chinese Imperial Qing government to win the new territory for 99 years, and the name was first incorporated into the Hong Kong colony. When the British come the next year, the indigenous British tried vigorous resistance, feeling the news of their lands and property to the British regime. This is our earliest known record of their position in Hong Kong.
According to the villagers' legends, some of the village militia acquired a powerful steam plasma turret gun from the Triads and used it against the British as they landed in Tai Po. Except they eventually still failed to turn the tide as the British deployed another similar superweapon and overpowered them.
The British resistance lasted 6 days and the British ultimately secured then ruled over the new territories. However, in response to conflict, the British left the regions alone, and the assistant village elders continued to dominate their regional effort for the few more decades to come. They also retained most of the extended properties and access.
So overall, there was still a huge difference in the technology level between the villagers and the British.
Yes, around 500 local villagers died, but the British only reported a few injuries. It's generally agreed that no British soldiers were killed in action, not even as a result of the villagers' steampunk turret gun. However, the gun may have caused a few shockwaves that put the wounded in action in the dozens instead. But of course, the British downplayed their numbers.
Then how long had those steampunk technologies lasted for?
Just 2 decades. The villagers claimed that these technologies were used by some British secret special military unit or underground agency, which were no longer active in Hong Kong after around 1920, leaving behind defunct parts of the associated machinery in the few villagers' own houses or buried underground.
Of course, not all villagers at that time saw the steampunk machines in action, but those who did carry those memories up to the 1970s, when what was left of those machines were unearthed. Speaking of this, let's go through our current progress and how it all started.
But before that, may we now introduce our team members.
Here are our university's president, vice presidents, and other members of our academic council. This is Professor Fang, our university's vice president of research, and also the dean of the research board, which is what we call our graduate school. This is Mr. Cooper, a representative of the Utopia Foundation in our academic council. Utopia Foundation is where we get our research funding. And this is Professor Tsai, the research leader.
The research projects about lost steampunk technologies are all under my leadership. And here is Professor John from South Korea, who did his postgraduates at MIT. You should have already known him before you come to our university.
Yeah, you remember we've worked together, didn't you?
你去同 Miss 梁講，禮拜四晚加多堂 physics。
但係媽咪，我禮拜一已經有佢 physics 補習班，學校 off 逢禮拜四放學行長 training 㗎喎。
啱啦，咁你樂團完咗咪即刻過 Miss 梁度上6點鐘開始嗰堂 physics 咯。
咁咪搞到好晏，仲要喺油麻地搭車翻到嚟大埔都要成個鐘。
再出聲一巴拍落你塊面度！你而家中3，出年就揀科，你再唔補多啲你就揀唔到 free camp by 㗎啦。唉，見你平時已經冇心機讀 science， 第時係咪想做件垃圾啊？專讀埋啲冇前途文科嘛？
唔單止阿媽，仲有中樂團個團長都係揀 free camp by M2， 連 Red Cross 啲師兄師姐都係咁講。
要知道文科淨係俾啲搞唔到理科嘅人讀㗎咋，好似我哋做醫護嘅，我就未聽過教人用啲咩歷史文化知識咯。
係咯，而家要揾大錢就一定要搞科研，即係要理科嘅人才啦。文科教嘅內容都唔關事，你哋學埋晒啲無謂嘢，第時點揾工啫？
但係
你算把啦，成日講埋晒啲咩軍事史，又唔見你步操做好啲。
其實我都好討厭自己一次次咁滿足唔到社會期望，一次次咁辜負爸爸媽媽，但係我真係做唔到啊！我攰啦，唔想再繼續無謂咁掙扎落去。反正我唔係讀理科嘅料，我喺呢個世界上都唔會有啲咩成就。
咦，志華，你喺度做咩啊？不如同我傾幾句啊！
今次統測，你連 free camp 把呢啲分數都考出嚟，睇下你啊，邊科冇用就叻邊科，唔係喎，又唔見你文科考得特別好啫喎，你中西史考過全級頭10未啊？你話啊，你仲有咩叻㗎？
媽咪，我以後會
我最憎就係啲冇信用嘅人㗎啦，你次次都話會考好啲理科，你有邊次做到㗎？你叫彭志華，你真係似翻你個名咁，有翻啲遠大志向，想做個有用嘅人，就我俾心機讀好個 free camp by 佢。唔係嘅話，就即係話你堅持想做個廢青啊！係咁嘅話就唔好意思啦，你投錯胎啊！我養唔到個仔一世，更加唔會教到個仔咁自甘墮落㗎。
啱啱 UT 阿媽已經係咁，我今次 free camp 咪炒晒，我想象唔到一陣翻到去佢會點對我。我揀唔到理科就玩完㗎啦。
所以你覺得自己好失敗係咪？
仲使講？你話我仲可以點？書又讀唔成，又冇乜朋友，玩樂器同步操都渣個人，仲要都冇機會入 student council。
咁每個人都有佢嘅長短處，你不妨多啲留意下自己嘅特長，揾翻個適合自己嘅土壤啦。我見你歷史文化知識都識好多，上個月開放日都係多得你幫手答問題先。
算啦，我都冇喺應該叻嘅地方叻。中樂團、Red Cross 同其他課外活動團體啲人全部都笑我鍾意文科嘅。香港社會咁睇唔起文科，阿媽唔俾我揀文科都係有道理㗎。
咁我又覺得行行出狀元，只要你有心讀、有心做，無論讀文科、理科定商科，都冇影響到你揾到理想嘅出路嘅。同埋我哋學校都有鍾意歷史文化嘅同學㗎。
而家歷史文化學會，班幹事正經嘢唔做，專玩權鬥。佢哋其實咪又係 student council 嘅人啫，都唔係真正鍾意歷史文化嘅。
明嘅，咁但係我同佢哋唔同㗎。同埋你有冇遇過支持你研究歷史文化嘅人啊？好似聽講你係圍球人。
係啊，我阿爸係粉嶺原居民， 我仲好細個嗰陣，就係阿爸同佢嗰邊啲親戚搞呢啲圍村人嘅文化風俗，但係自從阿爸去咗坐監之後，我就冇再見過佢哋，我哋間丁屋都冇埋，所以我同阿媽都搬咗出去，而家好耐都冇再返過條村度啦。
咁你後尾啲歷史知識又點學返嚟㗎？
都係我自己偷偷地睇書同上網讀嘅，同埋係啦，我記得仲有以前小五六個班主任 Miss Chow，佢話過佢都係圍村人，仲鼓勵我多啲去學歷史文化知識。我嗰陣小息有時都會揾下 Miss Chow 聽佢講古。
啱啦，咁咪揾 Miss Chow 出面幫手咯。
但係佢做嘢咁忙，點會得閒睬我啊？
我哋嚟緊個暑假就揀科㗎啦，升中四揀科咁大件事，佢實肯幫你嘅。我建議你厚面皮啲，一陣就返去你間小學度揾佢。我記得你屋企同小學都喺大埔，係咪？
係，咁好啦，希望 Miss Chow 幫到我面對阿媽啦。當我過到阿媽個關，咁之後點啊？
啱啦，咁我哋而家就係要趁個學會嚟緊轉顧問老師，一舉推翻學會嗰班舊勢力咯。你不如過嚟做我啲莊員啦。你都記得上個月學校開放日，我哋學會咪擺攤位遊戲嘅。到我當值嗰陣，唔上心會長佢班友啊，特登有錯嘅答案指我，搞到有個玩家明明嗰題答啱咗嘅，我爭啲判咗佢唔啱啊。之後每題仲要嘥時間自己諗翻啲正確答案，都係多得你上次咁樣幫咗我，呢個攤位遊戲先可以繼續咁樣落去咋。你開課同之前中西史科 UT 溫習工作坊都識答好多問題㗎，唔好妄自菲薄啊！
上莊有啲咩玩嘅先？
不如你嚟緊農曆新年假就同我哋一齊考察啦！
考察做咩㗎？
我哋打算做到學會幹事之後，就喺學校搞翻個認識新界原居民文化活動週。我哋嚟緊幾個月都會去新界唔同鄉村考察，同埋訪問村民長老，搜集活動週要用到嘅史料。
嗱，這個朋友陳其實點？就係其實，誒，你哋講緊咩啊？
咪阿趙教授咯，佢下個禮拜返大陸教啦。
趙教授就係上年一年出咗8篇論文嗰位。
係啊，仲要奇蹟地係冇俾人檢測到抄襲或者用 AI 寫。不過佢都終於頂唔順要走啦。睇下我哋大學嘅 publish or perish 去到幾咁黐線。
係啊，簡教授你喺度捱到而家都實在唔簡單。
係咩？佢哋叫我2年先要交一篇論文㗎喎。
咪就係優待晒你哋咯。人哋嘅蔡教授喺度做咗都有10年，喺我哋大學做嘢期間出嘅論文得1篇咋。以我所知，有直接參與佢嘅研究嘅其他教授都有豁免論文產出。我同趙教授呢啲做牛做馬咁，都仲未講到人工添。
係啊，睇人哋白教授人工幾高，而家啱啱入嚟咋，已經係簡教授3倍人工啦。
唉，冇辦法啦，學術界係咁唔公平。我哋大學冇得攞教資會嘅經常補助，又專做人文社會一類嘅學科。喺而家嘅後工業社會，都冇幾多金主肯出錢做歷史文化嘅研究。
係咯，喺科技研發先至能夠最直接創造到最大嘅經濟價值。科技行業揾得最多錢啊嘛，呢間大學收到嘅贊助主要都係嚟自科技界。
所以咪去晒蔡教授度咯。有咩辦法？蔡教授就係我哋大學嘅最大棵搖錢樹。佢哋咪搶晒啲資金資源同校方嘅政策支持咯。我同其他教授咪咩都攞唔到咯。
張教授話佢想做嘅其他研究都係 suspend 緊或者根本開始唔到。
即係蔡教授以外嗰啲？
係啊，一係校方唔批，一係增加 resources。
又唔見蔡教授佢哋啲咩失傳蒸汽高科技研究到啲咩成果出嚟，佢哋先係嘥晒啲資源嗰班。我睇佢哋都只係畫個大餅，話成功咗就會產生到領先幾百年嘅新技術，先吸引到咁多科技界嘅投資。我就唔睇好佢哋。
算啦，連英美兩國嘅情報機關都喺70年代收埋晒啲殘骸，研究咗20年都冇聽過有啲咩發現。 假設嗰啲蒸汽科技喺歷史上真係存在過，而當時英軍做嘅相關記錄仲未銷毀，咁應該都一直喺英國啲情報機關手上個可。呢種嘅情報，佢哋梗係唔會對外公開啦。蔡教授連呢啲資料都冇，就係靠啲殘骸本身同村民口講嘅傳說，就更加冇可能會。
又唔係完全冇呢個可能性嘅，畢竟而家同回歸過程比都做咗好多新嘅技術。如果唔係，村民最初點會反對提供文物？連蔡教授當時提出高價收購，佢哋最初都拒絕㗎。
所以你話蔡教授佢哋班人幾咁不擇手段，淨係打官司咋？我哋大學都攞咗將近成個億出嚟幫蔡教授佢哋搶走村民手上邊嘅文物啊！
聽講仲有彭氏長老俾佢哋逼到賠晒身家，佢個仔一齊坐埋監，個仔而家都未放出嚟添。
只係為咗要百幾年前嘅淨稀機械，到而家仲剩低喺村民手上嘅殘骸俾班教授。
係啊，所以白教授，你同得蔡教授佢哋合作，都要意識到佢哋本質上係啲幾咁恐怖嘅人。
咁公道啲講句，啲長老一樣太頑固啦，佢哋一早肯賣，校方都唔使咁樣迫害佢哋㗎。
就係70年代發現到嗰啲蒸汽機械殘骸，好快就俾啲情報機構收埋晒，佢哋仲封殺有關事實報道嘅啲密住，冇信任何外人，只可以信佢哋。我諗而家就俾蔡教授佢班人繼續研究落去，啲情報機關應該遲早又會出面處理。
其實成件事係點㗎？啲文物交俾校方之前 ，exactly 喺邊個手上？蔡教授之前好似講過，但係我一時
啲村民係話，主要係姓彭同姓侯兩個氏族，仲有一部分客家村民手上會有呢啲文物。70年代新界開始發展新市鎮，又實施咗丁屋政策，令到政府同發展商都收咗好多地。啲殘骸呢，有啲喺個地嗰度刮到出嚟，有啲係清拆舊村屋嘅時候喺屋入面揾到嘅。頭一批喺大埔發現嘅，雖然新界各地都有發現，但係主要都係集中喺大埔同粉嶺上水一帶。
講起新市鎮呢，簡教授好似識紅蘭鄉㗎嘛？
係啊，我20幾年前參與過佢啲研究項目。我哋大學都有唔少教授係識紅蘭鄉同佢個諮詢委員會啲人㗎。
邊個嚟㗎？
洪教授係上個年代嘅學術界權威人士，佢生前研究過鄉村社會學。2017年過身嗰陣，我哋大學都係啱啱成立。由70、80年代實施丁屋政策開始呢，港英政府喺新界收咗好多原居民嘅地去開發新市鎮。啲蒸汽科技殘骸都係嗰陣時發現嘅。咁新界各地重建嘅事務都要安排人手去做。而當時民政專員柯海健負責大埔區，就係揾咗洪教授同佢個學派嘅學者去組成咗個諮詢委員會。
安健海喺回歸之後嗰年過身嘅，聽講佢老豆係清末民初嗰陣已經喺大埔經商。
咁你做乜嚟咗香港嘅？
唉，我老豆而家官司纏身，停職調查啊，所以咧軍方啲大會要抌我過去啲偏遠嘅殖民地，我咪嚟咗呢度咯。
吓？而在發生咗啲咩事啊？上年先收到阿姨封信，你哋一家仲好地地㗎。
啱啱我幾個月嘅事㗎咋，阿爸幫英軍啲負責研發武器嘅科學家孭鑊咯。我都知阿爸其實冇咩嘢做錯，只係咧因為佢為咗唔好俾嗰啲科技改良到嗰啲武器有太多殺傷力，先至會俾翻科學家出賣啫。不過詳情我都唔係好清楚，依家淨係知道阿爸啲政敵喺全世界嘅英國殖民地都有佢哋嘅勢力。阿爸喺我上船前一晚叫我去查下佢哋喺香港嘅人物。希望咧咁樣會有個突破口，證明到佢無辜㗎啦。係喎，表哥啊，你依家生意做成點啊？聽講你係河東合作商務。
哦，言下之意即係你想利用我嘅人物幫你揾個關鍵人物？
梗係唔係啦，你幫到我嘅話固然好，不過其實係我而家喺香港嘅新上司安排我揾你嘅。我而家住喺元朗沿住青山公路工地嗰啲軍營嗰度啊。我上面咧會有位少校負責代表駐港英軍去聯絡嗰啲新界做嘢嘅民政官員啊、警察同埋嗰啲本地鄉紳，因為在上級嗰一啲軍官咧就唔會長期駐紮喺新界嘅。咁我哋軍營就有啲物資要同嗰啲附近嘅村民買，例如嗰啲木柴啊、起路碎石啊，仲有具體喺邊度施工咧，同埋要爭河水咧，呢一啲咧都係要少校同啲村民同埋啲文官協商嘅。咁我到咗之前，香港呢邊嘅軍官就已經收過電報查過晒我啲背景資料㗎啦。咁少校咧就話
你都有中國人血統，識講粵語，仲有個喺香港住嘅表哥添。咁呢啲嘢咪啱晒你做咯。Did you get me, Charlie?
我明。How to help with translating and communicating with the local villagers, and also collect information on their lives and customs.
And most importantly, defend the image and authority of the British administration in Hong Kong. And about your cousin, your family has said that he is now doing business with the New Territories villagers, right?
係啊，我主要就係同啲新界嘅鄉紳做生意，賣洋貨俾啲村民。範圍呢，通常就係喺大埔、沙頭角同埋屯門呢啲地方，方便泊船，岸邊又多人住，又有墟市，咪啱晒做買賣咯。所以我同嗰度啲村民都幾熟下嘅。至於你哋元朗，我就好少直接入。不過我喺屯門同南頭城都有識人，會將我啲貨轉賣到元朗去，用船由後海灣沿住錦田河河口駛入。
咁啱啦！除咗少教想知多啲新界嘅民風，其實我都第一次嚟香港，都要靠下你識下人。
我有賣鐘錶、煤燈、金銀器之類嗰啲貨物，都係由河東佢哋入貨嘅，所以香港呢度嘅軍政界同商界人士我都識幾多。至於啲新界人呢，我係啱啱就講到喺大埔、沙頭角、屯門同埋南頭城都有熟人。係啦，同埋你話少教識中文嘅呢？
係啊。而家呢，得我同少教同埋隔離皇家工兵有幾個僕人係識講粵語嘅啫，所以我哋幾個都聽得明啲村民講本地話嘅。係咁嘅話就唔該晒你啦。咁呢排你嘅生意順唔順利啊？
唉，正想講，呢半年嚟呢啲生意就真係越做越差。大埔嗰兩個區呢就衝突不斷，屯門同深圳嗰邊呢個市場競爭又大。
咁你平時喺邊度做生意係最旺㗎？
本嚟咪大埔咯，上年其他地方嘅營收加埋都冇大埔咁多。呢兩個區都互相鬥咗20年啦，又唔見前幾年有搞到而家咁亂。
你如果喺大埔俾隔離嗰個區抵制嘅話，咁你咪直接喺你架船上面買嘢咯。
喂，咁嗰兩個區嘅業主實打死我都得㗎啦！我要有個經收商租其中一個區嘅鋪位，咁佢哋先收到我啲租金㗎。我都知唔可以淨係靠晒大埔嘅市場，但係要擴張市場，點都要用返幾年啦。如果再咁落去，我都唔知撐唔撐到呢幾年。
你即係話喺由嗰幾個月之前嗰兩個區嘅衝突，先至會開始影響到你嗰盤生意啦。咁如果係咁嘅話，啲衝突應該另有隱情。
咁其實大埔本身就得一個區，呢個新區呢，就係20年前啲村民唔想再俾舊區壟斷晒先至有嘅。咁我而家交咗係俾個新區。至於近排嘅衝突呢，我就係聽講係半年前一單疑似係謀殺案有關，死者好似係舊區嗰啲商戶嚟嘅。
不如咁啦，表哥。你配合下軍方呢，得閒搭下我同少教嗰啲諮詢，同埋呢幫埋我揾個關鍵人物，我幫翻你調查下大埔區嘅嗰啲案件，睇下攞唔攞到上頭嘅批准先啦。
就咁話啦。
嗰個英軍士兵平時就喺駐港英軍度服役嘅，有事嗰時就話正話嗰啲軍方秘密組織執行下任務，有時仲會做臥底村民添㗎。就咁樣過咗幾年咧。嗰啲秘密武器科技冇晒之後，佢就娶咗個村民老婆。之後佢點樣我就唔知道啦，淨係知佢哋嘅後人已經返晒英國啦。我哋係搵唔到佢噶啦。
即係根據你哋嘅傳說，港英政府喺1899年接管咗新界嘅幾年後，軍方就開始喺香港研究秘密武器，然後到民國嗰陣就冇晒咁啊。
可以咁講。佢哋所講嘅秘密武器已經唔係高科技足以形容啦，威力呢，好似《西遊記》或者《封神榜》嗰啲神器咁誇張。嗰10幾年，新界一直都搞唔搞就有一大班人拎住嗰種武器打嚟打去，最後一次喺1918定19年之後，嗰啲高科技就喺香港絕晒跡啦。後尾日本侵華同香港淪陷嗰陣，佢哋嗰邊好似都有啲動靜，不過就冇乜點樣影響到我哋新界嘅村落。我出世已經過晒淪陷期啦，所以呢啲傳說都係我父母同佢哋一代嘅村民講返俾我哋一代嘅。佢哋聲稱有親身經歷過嗰啲事件， 唉，當然佢哋嗰代而家都走晒咁滯，已經考證唔到咧。
呢啲傳說都係你哋口講咋話？
唔係嘅，都有實物。拎開你個手機啲相俾大家睇下啦。
新界6日戰爭嗰集，我哋姓侯嘅冇直接參戰，不過呢，就捐咗啲錢同埋彈藥俾啲鄉勇咁咯。當時都有幾個族人自願陪佢哋打英國佬㗎。後尾我哋族人都有做過嗰啲秘密武器特工噶，呢啲就係佢哋留低嘅高科技裝備啦。就咁樣，就成百年傳咗幾代到而家咯。
前幾年咪有間大學攞晒啲文物去研究嘅，啲文物本來係啲村民自己屋企度，或者有啲放咗喺專攻所度。我哋最初都唔想交出去嘅，但係見到成棚佢哋咁俾大學啲人蝦到咁慘，我哋最尾都乖乖地賣晒啲文物俾校方啦。而呢啲相就係運去間大學之前影嘅。
既然我啲親戚都咁講，咁我哋日後再商量下點樣入手調查啦。
好啊，Miss Ho。咁你哋仲有啲咩故事傳說？
傳說就話喺明末我哋個宗族有個少女嫁咗去姓廖嘅。有一日個廖氏老公就俾啲海盜捉走咗。
你又嚟呢度買嘢食？
係啊，啱啱食完張純送落堂落嚟，一陣不如坐低一齊食飯啦。聽到你咁講就實在太好啦！我相信到時你同我一齊上莊，我哋打得低個 Angela 做咗新一屆幹事嘅話，你阿媽應該好滿意嘅。至於讀書嗰度，歡迎你隨時揾我哋一齊溫書，我同 Vivian 會試下教下你啲中世史科啦。
係咁就最好啦。不過歷史文化學會嚟緊嘅詳細交接流程同規則係點樣㗎？
每個學會都有顧問老師㗎嘛。咁歷史文化學會而家嘅 Miss John 呢，佢出年就升咗副校，冇得再做任何負責課活動嘅顧問老師職位。咁所以 Student Council 就要求我哋學會重組，想做下一任會長嘅就要儲定一個內閣，同埋要揾新嘅顧問老師。如果有多過一個內閣想做，而會長同顧問老師人選有冇重複到嘅話，咁校方最終就會將個學會判俾人多個內閣啦。咁所以我哋要贏呢，就必須有老師嘅支持，同埋要確保夠多人肯入我哋個內閣。如無意外，我哋應該揾段 Sir 嚟做我哋嘅新顧問老師。佢而家教你嗰班中史嘅係咪？
係啊。
段 Sir 後生又熱心，好受同學歡迎，加上佢本身已經帶緊歷史文化問答隊。佢做埋學會嘅顧問老師就最有威望啦！佢如果肯支持我哋，除咗滿足到競選條件之外，我哋嘅勝算都會提高。其他年紀大啲嘅中西史老師，好似 Miss John 同 Miss Chan 咁，佢哋一定冇段 Sir 咁積極，同埋只會任人唯親。除咗跟開佢哋嗰少數幾個擦鞋仔，啲同學普遍都唔鍾意佢哋，所以我哋又好 ，Angela 佢哋又好，只要顧問老師係段 Sir 做。到最尾去揾閣員嘅時候，點都着數過 Miss Chan。
但係咁 Angela 佢哋都會想爭段 Sir 㗎啦，同埋 Miss John 仲有而家唔上心會長，佢成個班底都係企喺 Angela 嗰邊㗎。
鬼唔知咩，不過我哋總有機會。雖然班師兄姐嘅勢力仲係好大，但係自從之前開放日嗰單嘢以嚟，佢哋喺班初中會員嘅威信一直都流失緊。同埋我喺問答比賽嘅表現，段 Sir 同問答隊啲人都有目共睹嘅。歷史文化學會咁多年嚟都係跟開 Miss John 同 Student Council 班舊勢力把持住。而家 Miss John 落台，我再唔乘機搏翻一鋪嘅話，以後就冇機會㗎啦。我一陣都約咗段 Sir 傾原居民活動周嘅事項。
黃同學幾好嘅主意啊！
人文呢係一個非常宏大嘅範疇嚟嘅，咁要培養起我哋學生嘅文化素養，由香港呢個最切身相關嘅地方開始入手，的確係一個理想嘅途徑。
冇錯，未講到去香港或者成個世界後生一代，就係睇我哋學校啊，我都觀察到學生好多都係平時唔會點關心周圍環境。身為香港人又唔熟悉香港嘅社會現況同背後反映嘅歷史文化背景，所以我先認為呢一類嘅歷史文化專題活動係佢哋所需要嘅。
而家呢代嘅學生成日對住部電腦同手機，容易會有沉迷數碼世界同埋集中唔到注意力嘅情況，所以喺接收資訊嘅方式呢，都係比較速食啊、囫圇吞棗嘅。加上要應付填鴨式嘅教育制度，佢哋需要在意嘅根本就唔係知識本身，而係只係考試會點樣問。結果佢哋咪冇晒好奇心同深入思考嘅意識咯。而呢啲嘅特質呢，都係追求學問所要求嘅，尤其係文史哲啊。加上吹捧理科藐視文科嘅風氣，所以啲學生都普遍唔會點對歷史文化有啲咩興趣啦，根本都冇機會通過人文嘅薰陶，讓到自己有所改變，咁咪形成咗惡性循環咯。
所以呢個咪就係帶領同學學多啲歷史文化知識嘅意義所在咯。係
啊，黃同學，你同你嗰幾位良朋益友都已經叻過好多同齡人㗎啦，而且都好有心去改變呢個現狀，呢樣嘢呢係我好欣賞嘅。咁就期待歷史文化學會交到你哋手上嘅一日啦。咁原居民活動週係包括啲咩內容嘅呢？
我哋而家仲研究緊，到時具體會安排啲咩節目內容。畢竟係下個學年嘅事，同而家仲好遙遠。活動週除咗講返啲新界原居民嘅歷史文化風俗特色之類嘅資訊，更加要從唔同社會崗位嘅觀點切入，回憶返由古至今唔同年代喺啲新界古村落嘅日常生活。我爸都係歷史學家，由啱啱個新年假起，嚟緊呢半年佢都會帶我同啲朋友去新界唔同地方做考察同訪問，搜集到時活動週用到嘅史料。
你哋具體去咗邊啲地方，同埋嚟緊打算參觀邊度呢？
啱啱過年初四咪去咗錦田、吉慶圍同屏山咯，仲有上個禮拜分別有2日去咗大埔同上水。上水嗰次係去睇元宵點燈同食盤菜，我哋認識咗新界村民嘅飲食同節慶活動儀式。而再對上去元朗同大埔呢，我哋就採訪咗屏山鄧氏嘅長老同大埔嘅客家原居民，仲有了解咗新界建築物同交通物流嘅時代演變。我哋嚟緊都會繼續研究原居民嘅節慶同信仰習俗，同埋語言、教育、水電網供應、生活用品之類。好啊，你哋搜集資料都做得好全面多角度啊！咁所以同你一齊去考察嘅咪就係啲你打算拉入你內閣嗰班人啦，係咪？梗係啦，好肯定會入我嘅內閣嘅。暫時有3個，加埋我就啱啱好夠人數去參選。不過咁樣副會長就係得1個。但我聽講歷史文化學會不嬲都有2個副會長嘅喎，所以黃同學你又仲要繼續揾人做閣員嘅喎。係啊，仲揾緊㗎。同埋如果有人同我爭，揾到多啲人，我先確保到我哋閣員人數多過對方。明白。咁同埋，既然做得新界文化風俗嘅主題活動，你哋嘅內閣又有冇新界原居民呢？咁樣我相信會有啲代表性，同埋廖同學佢呢 Angela 唔係佢，我哋另外揾咗飛啲班嘅彭志華，佢都係圍頭。
希望阿媽肯俾我同黃偉霆佢哋出去玩啦。之前嘅佢一定唔會俾，但係前幾日派卷，我聽咗黃偉霆話返小學揾 Miss 抄，嗰晚佢就打咗個電話俾阿媽，或者會有轉機㗎。